the Secretary of State for the European Union, we have talked among the member states about the framework that we need to review and work on during the course of our presidency. This has to do with reindustrialization, the major challenges that we face for energy, critical raw materials, and the impact that the next generation EU funds are having on our industry and the challenges ahead to make Europe a competitive space. Obviously, we talked about open strategic autonomy and the different relationships within the very important trade relations with countries and continents that we need to provide impetus for during this presidency. There was the EU CELAC summit recently, and this is something that also feeds into the negotiations on trade relations, open strategic autonomy, markets. We also talked about the single market. This is one of the most important aspects, and something that we saw through the crises that we've experienced is that we need a stronger Europe with more autonomy. And there is unity in terms of the criteria to work in these areas, and this is something that we heard about from Commissioner Reynders and also from the Spanish presidency. The Spanish presidency will provide leadership on these issues and will continue the work that we've done today. This will all be taken to the informal council that will take place in October in Granada. And I would say that the conclusions that can be drawn can be very positive. There's a window of opportunity. We always talk about financing, which is very important. That's always important to have financing on the table. We looked at the priorities and the challenges ahead. It's a very complex time, and we have been able to provide extraordinary responses to the crises we have faced. But we also have to provide impetus, and we need to tap into the potential of the European market. It's a part of our reality. It's a very competitive international scenario. I will give the floor now to Commissioner Reynders.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to thank the Spanish presidency, in particular to Mr. Gómez, for organizing such a discussion, because it's very important to us to build on the single market, a better competitiveness of our businesses at home but also abroad. And we have discussed about an open strategic autonomy. It's important maybe to limit the dependencies of Europe to third countries. I want just to insist on different actions that we have tried to develop on this. First, the Commission has worked on an extensive mapping of Europe's dependencies. We have analyzed over 5,000 products and undertaken analyses for selected critical items ranging from critical raw materials, hydrogen, batteries, semiconductors, cloud and cyber technologies, as well as chemicals and other pharmaceutical inputs, so a very large range of different products. And this analysis provides crucial input to the Commission's efforts to diversity inputs in build resilient and sustainable value chains. So we try to build more and more new strategy value chain for different products in Europe. And of course, it's very important to protect EU industry from trade distortions. And to that end, we have adopted several measures to strengthen our toolbox, for instance, through stronger screening of foreign subsidies or foreign direct investment. The second action, there is a need to significantly boost our domestic capacities to produce and manufacture critical technologies in Europe. And to attract and boost investment in Europe, the Commission is focused on creating a stable regulatory environment, especially when it comes to clean tech and raw materials. And I'm sure that we'll make some progress during the Spanish presidency about our net zero industry proposals adopted in March, and a similar or critical raw materials act because there are two priorities maybe for the next months. And finally, these measures go hand in hand our efforts to facilitate public investment and de-risk investment from leaving Europe. And it's the reason why it's true that we need to speak sometimes about the funding and such a new STEP platform, the Strategic Technologies for Europe platforms. This will facilitate EU funding to be channeled into the development and manufacturing of strategic technologies. Of course, if you are doing that, we are doing that also to promote a more circular and more sustainable economy. And I have informed about the development of the discussion in the trilogues on the CSDDD, so the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. I'm hoping that during the Spanish presidency it will be possible to conclude the negotiations to show that we are front runner in the protection of environment and human rights in the supply chain. So thanks again for such a first debate. I will take back many observations with me and to share with my colleague Thierry Breton, but also with all the colleagues in the college. Thank you very much.
Bueno, ministro, por mi parte.
Well, from me, I would just add that the debate was very useful in terms of providing guidance to the work that needs to be done in Council on the various pending industrial market and competitiveness files, as the Commissioner has said. And of course, we're very committed on the Spanish side. We're working with the different working parties and co-repair to make sure that these important files can be agreed upon as quickly as possible. We had a very good and useful debate with the ministers. Thank you. Media and name, please.
Hi, a question in English. Léa Marchal from Agence Europe. On the open strategic autonomy, what are the most urgent measures that were identified today? Because, I mean, there are many ideas to reinforce the single market, boost the productivity, etc. But these ideas, I have the feeling that they are already included in the Commission proposals or communications. So, what more today? I mean, the European Council in March also discussed that. They say what their expectations were. And Minister, you just said that the debates were very useful for the work. So what more can you tell us? Are there new expectations from Member States? And a second question, a bit more precise on the Net Zero Industry Act. Do you hope, are you confident that the Act can be adopted this year, still under the Spanish presidency? Thank you.
Maybe first on the different proposals. So you have mentioned just one, the Net Zero Industry proposal. The same, I will say, for the Critical Raw Materials Act. There are two proposals to boost the possibility to manufacture in Europe some products on the basis of a real internal strategic value chain, or a value chain with some like-minded partners, because for the raw materials, you know that we have signed different kind of agreement with different partners in the world of this. And so on those two issues, it's very important to go forward if we want to develop such an open strategic autonomy. The same, we have discussed about the funding, we said both, the Minister and myself, and of course on the new STEP platform, so the Strategic Technologies for Europe platform, it's also important to make progress in those discussions. For the rest, for the second question, from the Commission, we are just hoping that it will be possible to make huge progress till the end of the presidency, but I will let maybe the Minister say more about the hopes of the Spanish presidency itself.
Yeah. En relación a la segunda
With relation to that second question, because I think the first one's clear, obviously this is part of a fundamental pillar for the our presidency. There's the informal ministerial meeting that is going to talk about the huge challenges that the European Union faces, also strategic autonomy. As the Commissioner and the State Secretary have said, we've been taking up contacts and working on these issues, and we've gotten a lot of positive contributions. And we would like to finalize this. That's one of our aims. We'd like to have a clear roadmap for the Union in order to reach this objective. And I think that's something that we've seen through these major crises that we've gone through. We need to strengthen Europe, and this is one of our huge priorities.
And the Commissioner insisted on that, we are advancing a legislative program to tackle the difficulties of the competitiveness of the European economy, all those legislative proposals. And at the same time, we are thinking of the future of the European economy after the next year, the next strategic agenda, and then we are reflecting about the open strategic autonomy of the European economy, about the future of the internal market, the new concept of economic security. And then you are right that on that there are several proposals today on the table. Somebody has to insist on certain sectors, somebody has to want to insist in the financing, somebody want to insist in level playing field. Okay, today, as my minister said, there was a good occasion for reflecting on which are the angles the different member states favorize in this reflection for the future, that we have to begin with that reflection, and that is the purpose of our informal European Council in Granada, and afterwards for shaping the future of the European economy. Okay.
Muy bien.
Thank you.
¿Alguna pregunta más?
And then another question.
Buenos días, soy María Fuentes de Expansión.
Maria Fuentes, Expansión. Well, you don't seem to be very specific about the issues. You said that there have been member state contributions, that the Spanish presidency is going to provide impetus to some of these. But please give us some indication as to the what needs to be advanced. What are you going to give impetus to?
Muy bien.
Right then. Indeed. There was a very good contribution from the Spanish presidency, and this is a resilient EU study. We worked with various organizations from the member states and the perspectives unit of the Commission. It's a public study, and this report was fed into also by the Spanish presidency. And this is an upshot of the informal council in Versailles, because we said that we needed to heighten open strategic autonomy in the area of digital health and the environment. And then there are other member states that like to stress the issue of raw materials, the critical raw materials. Other member states have stressed some of the more critical issues. That word open. To what extent will the EU have an open trade policy? What are the limits of those agreements, trade agreements, and our agreements with third countries? And so these are some of the issues that the member states stressed. As I said, also financing, state aid, these issues were broached as well. Now, we initiated a debate today. We listened. The Spanish presidency put a very important paper on the table, and we are going to continue the work along those lines. And just to go back to what we said at the beginning, we talked about the importance of financing, also to measure the impact of European funds for reindustrialization. We talked about energy, also very important. We see this in Spain and Portugal. You know, Spain and Portugal being an energy island, and so we were talking about that within the context of the Union. The Commissioner talked about semiconductors and other issues. In reality, we're taking a snapshot of all of the contributions, and there's a lot of convergence We talked about the importance of the EU CLAC and the progress that was made. All of that feeds into open strategic autonomy. And so basically what we really want to give impetus to this autonomy, not through just financing, but also through complementarity. And the State Secretary talked about this. There are documents that we're using as the bases for these discussions, and this will also feed into the informal ministerial in the informal summit in Grenada. And I think we all agree here at the EU about our industry. We really do need to face these challenges. We need to be able to do that, and all of the member state contributions talked about a lot of the specific issues, and the roadmap is clear. We need to bring on board aspects that will help us reach this objective of this strategic economy.
That it was very important today to show what is possible to do in the last years, because we have already built a lot of new developments, like for the vaccines during the pandemic, or the production of ammunition since the beginning of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And we have continued to work on this. And now we are busy with the CHIPS Act, but now with the raw materials, we are working in the same way, and we try to do the same with clean technology. But what was very important with the document proposed by the Spanish presidency is also to think about the next steps, because we need to think about the next steps in the next mandate of the European Parliament and the new Commission after the elections next year. So it's very important to have a continuous work on all those issues. And so thanks to the Spanish presidency, it was possible now to show what was possible to do in the last years, what we have on the table now till maybe the end of the Spanish presidency and the beginning of the next presidency next year, but then also to think about the next steps for the future. And that's a very important issue, because it's a continuous work that we have to do to have a better strategic autonomy, open strategic autonomy in Europe.
Muy bien. Muchas gracias. Muy amable.
Thank you very much.